Domingo Santana, ooh, I wanna have ya. Tanaka's Fakakta, Jag like Michael Waka, Polanco and Franco. Where'd you go to get into first place? Check Matt and Valdeta and swinging strike rates. Raisins are shriveled grapes. Here's Adam's happy place.
Happy Kokomo Friday and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today, presented by Line & Kugels. More on their great variety of beer later on in the podcast. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott White. And remember how last Friday it was Angry Scott who wanted to rant? Will Craig had a stupid play on that Thursday. We had to talk about it. Scott had to get it all off of his chest. That's going to be me today, Scott.
Ooh, Angry Frank. I'm not sure I've ever seen Frank angry before.
Oh, you won't like me when I'm angry. The reason why? This little sticky situation that we've got going on that John Heyman and Ken Rosenthal have been tweeting about. Should you trade Christian Yelich? We'll talk about that as well. The drop-o-meter, some hot hitters, week 11 sleepers, 2-star pitchers, your Apple Podcast review questions, and fantasy justice. Scott, I jam-packed this rundown to the absolute brim, and
good thing Chris isn't here.
You're not wrong.
He was gonna be here, but he was having an internet connectivity issues. So it's been a whole week of either one or the other of us, which means Frankie gets a chance to shine. A little more input from Frank in these shows, and we'll get to see him be angry. So this will be fun.
All right, so let's do this.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Where would you like to start, Scott? We'll start at the top. Some, oh my goodness gracious, standouts from Thursday. Who do you have?
I didn't pick it out beforehand. How about Charlie Blackmon? That's a random place to start, right? Charlie Blackmon. He had a good game. Rockies were home. At Coors Field, he had 3 hits. He had his 4th home run. He had his 11th double, and that brought his batting average up to 262. His OPS is still south of 800. Doesn't seem great for Charlie Blackmon. Obviously, guy in his mid-30s. You'll worry if it's the end for Charlie Blackmon, but actually, even prior to this game, looking at the StatCast numbers for Blackmon, he has his highest expected batting average ever since StatCast started. Highest ever. His xSlug, so if you're just talking about measuring the power production, it's right in line with his career norms in terms of how hard he's hitting the ball, average launch angle. It's all pretty similar. It all looks basically like what you'd expect from Charlie Blackmon in a given year. Strikeout rate is actually the best it's ever been. That's part of the reason why he has such an high XBA, I'm sure. But I don't really see anything that raises an alarm for me or raises a red flag other than the fact he's 34 years old and, was kind of meh last year too. I think he might be a pretty good buy low candidate. I know we've mentioned him as that before, but I don't know. I hadn't taken that close a look at him personally, and this performance tonight kind of led me to do that, and that was my takeaway. So, yeah, Charlie Blackmon. There you go.
Chuck Nasty. He's not done yet. His last 15 games, he's batting .319 during that stretch, and I'm with you. I think he's still a prime buy low candidate. I mean, he's not really a buy low based on what I just said. He's been coming around. It's just people might not realize that he's been as good as he has over the past 2 weeks or so, and he's older. So I mean, typically, people are, who wants to acquire an older bat? It's just, it's not the sexy thing to do, I guess. But for all the reasons you mentioned, the strikeout rate, the best of his career, Charlie Blackmon has been a really good hitter for a long time. His .302 expected batting average is the highest in the StatCast era. So he is doing something right, and better days are coming. I'd say the only downside for him is the Rockies lineup is pretty bad. I think we could say that confidently, especially while Trevor Story's out. Obviously, no more Nolan Arenado. So the counting stats not going to be where they have been the past couple of years for Blackmon, but I'm with you 100%, Scott. I am in favor of trying to acquire Charlie Blackmon. My, oh my goodness gracious, player of the day. Let's just call it a situation. You know what? Actually, no. I'm not going to talk about Gerrit Cole yet. Well, let's talk about the pitcher on the other side, because that actually deserves talking about here at the top. Ryan Yarbrough, who pitched a complete game against the New York Yankees. It was the first complete game for a Rays starting pitcher since May of 2016. That is wild. It's wild, but
that's a long time ago.
This is what they do. This is what the Rays do. They don't push their starting pitchers very deep. Tyler Glass now has been the exception of that this year. Not that he's throwing complete games or anything. He's been very good, but let's get back to Ryan Yarbrough. He allowed 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 0 walks, 9 strikeouts, 11 swinging strikes on 113 pitches. So obviously not a great swinging strike conversion ratio there. You can stream your pitchers against the Yankees this season. They are averaging 3.77 runs per game, which is 26th in all of baseball. Until they figure it out, which I don't know if they're going to figure it out, you can stream your pitchers against the Yankees. I'm here to tell you that, Scott. What did you see from Ryan Yarbrough in this? Even with this start, I still think he's pretty fringy overall. 3.95 ERA, 1.14 whip. He is 39% rostered, so he's widely available. What do you think about him?
I think he's pretty much the same as he's always been. You know, the whip's pretty low, the ERA higher than ideal, not a great strikeout guy. Usable at times with the right matchups, especially. I think he has RP eligibility. Does he not have RP eligibility this year?
I don't think he does.
Yeah, this might be the year he doesn't. So yeah, that kind of hurts the usability. But what you have to keep in mind, you know, as nice as it was to see him go 9 innings in this start, Yarbrough, 3 of his previous 4 starts, he didn't even go 5 innings. So it's going to be difficult to pinpoint exactly when you're going to get something usable from him.
I think that is fair to say. And look, we're not going to expect him to throw as many pitches as he did in this start or go as deep as he did in this game against the Yankees. I think in the right matchups is fine. If anything deeper than a 12-team league, I think he's worth rostering. But yeah, and 12 teams or shallower, probably not on Ryan Yarbrough. It was a great start for him. I will point out he threw a season-high 41 changeups, which obviously was very useful for him in this start. On the other side, Gerrit Cole didn't have a good start. That's fine. 5 innings, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. But baseball Twitter was ablaze because the spin rates, Scott, were way down for Gerrit Cole in this start. And it's definitely curious that it happened on the same day that multiple MLB insiders, John Heyman, Ken Rosenthal, they all came out and they're talking about this exact thing. This was a tweet from John Heyman. Evidence was presented at the MLB owners' meetings to suggest that the use of illegal foreign substances by pitchers trying to enhance spin rates and get an edge is very prevalent in the game. So the crackdown will now commence in earnest. That tweet came out on Thursday morning, and then it just so happened that Gerrit Cole's spin rates were down. Now, the reason this angered me so much, Scott, is because people were actually tweeting at me, and I don't know if they were genuine or not, or just people being trolls, but they're saying, like, Gerrit Cole's done. He's going to go back to being the pitcher he was back in Pittsburgh. This is the Pirates' Gerrit Cole. He's back now that he doesn't have foreign substances. And I think that is a very wacky take to have on this entire situation. I saw another tweet. This was from Max Goldstein, which pointed out Gerrit Cole's 4-seam fastball had an average spin rate of 2436 RPM on Thursday. The last outing during which his average fastball spin rate was lower than that was September 21st of 2018. So it has been a very long time. Do you see anything here? Are you worried about pitchers in general taking a step back? And pitchers, you know, most notably like Gerrit Cole, who have very high spin rates, Trevor Bauer, who has a very high spin rate, maybe taking a step back as a result of these tweets from John Heyman and Ken Rosenthal.
Yes, I am. I think it's an overreaction to say that's what we saw from this start with Cole today on Thursday night. In fact, you know, it wasn't such a bad start that I was even really looking there. It's just like, okay, he was a little off tonight, whatever. The average exit velocity against Garrett Cole was 83.2 miles per hour, which is obviously very good.
Yeah.
He had 15 whiffs, 15 swinging strikes. So, it didn't seem like a big deal to me, but it is notable that the spin rate happened to be down on that fastball by a significant, a lot of RPM, over 100 RPM. The spin rate on the fastball was down in this game. And I will point out that 2018, the last time it was that low, he was already with the Astros at that point, and it was toward the end of that really good season with the Astros, really good first season with the Astros. So, I don't think he's going to suddenly become an average pitcher. But I don't really know what's going to happen with this. It does seem to be a thing. They are going to start cracking down on it. John Heyman's tweet wasn't the first I saw about that. Like I think Bob Nightingale, he had an article with interviewing Theo Epstein, basically, who has a lot of ideas for what's to come for baseball. A lot of changes, but this was going to be the most immediate one. The idea is to restore some balance in the game, to make it so pitchers aren't so advantaged and hitters don't have to sell out so hard for the long ball. I think the short-term effect, though, and maybe that'll be the long-term effect, I don't know, but I think the short-term effect is hitters aren't going to change their approach, and so just offense is going to go up in general. But to apply it to specific pitchers, I don't know. I'm hesitant to do that. And I'm hesitant to... I'm the sort of person who kind of wants to see the information before I start changing my approach based on it, which I understand if I can come to the correct conclusion beforehand, I'll be advantaged in that way. But I just don't have enough faith in myself to do that, So if it becomes a trend with the spin rate down being this far down for Cole, then maybe we'll have to look into that more. But I think it's premature to do that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's the right way to handle this situation, Scott, because as much as we study these things day in and day out, we really don't know if spin rates are going to remain down for just Garrett Cole. For all starting pitchers, it's something that we're going to have to follow. I'm very interested to see not just Trevor Bauer, but anyone else who has a high spin rate in baseball. What does their spin rate look like over the next couple of starts following, more of these tweets coming out from John Heyman and Ken Rosenthal? And we don't even know what the repercussions are going to be. They haven't talked about if they're going to be handing out suspensions or what it might be. So we're just speculating at this point. But I think, look, for people to come out and say Garrett Cole is done, now that he doesn't have foreign substances, his spin rate, this 2436 RPM, was still way higher than what his spin rate was back in Pittsburgh. It was 2100 on his fastball back in Pittsburgh. So
right.
I'm it could affect him, but not to the level where he's not an ace still. I'm not.
This is the Twitter playbook. I mean, you're communicating with people on Twitter.
I know. I got to
take an idea to its furthest extreme, and that's the new reality, which is a problem in many ways, not just in baseball. But we don't have to get into all that.
Look, if you have any tips, Scott, I think maybe I just shut off my notifications, but I can't do that because I like to answer questions and help people out.
No, I don't have any tips. I
wanted to put my head through my computer, Scott. I was so angry.
It's easy when it's a thing that I'm not getting worked up about to, kind of rise above it and say, well, obviously you just have to understand the audience you're working with. But, I have my moments of rage. And, I think that jaw issue I was having a few weeks back, was it something I was doing in my sleep or whatever? And I think it was just because, I get this kind of clenched teeth expression when I'm just kind of letting the anger pass through me. And I think maybe I was doing that too much. So, the only solution is to just sign off and you'll feel better about it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you're right. Before we hit the news and notes, we know summer is starting, so you might not have as much time on your hands. Of course, we would love for you to listen to our full-length podcast here, but if you're short on time, remember that you can always catch our 5-minute podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, which is also released Monday through Friday. We usually hit on the biggest performers of the night or day, waiver wire ads, bullpen updates, and much more. You can download and follow FBT in 5 wherever you find this podcast. News and notes from Thursday. Madison Bumgarner was placed on the IL with left shoulder inflammation. Andrew Vaughn went to the COVID IL. GM Rick Hahn had this to say. Vaughn was placed on the COVID-19 injured list Thursday. He is currently asymptomatic, and our hope is that, similar to our other IL placements of this nature, he will return shortly to the active roster. Kind of set my attention here a little bit, Scott, on Jake Lamb, who is set for more playing time, deeper leagues, obviously AL only. He hit his 4th home run on Thursday. He's batting .265 with a .931 OPS. It's a small sample size. He's 1% rostered. Plays 6 games next week. 4 of those are against lefties. So that's not great, but deeper leagues. AL only, Jake Lamb. He's going to play more. Fernando Tatis returns to the lineup for the Padres. He was dealing with oblique discomfort. He has already, at the time of recording this, added 2 more hits and his 17th home run of the season. So I think he's fine. Corey Seager will travel with the Dodgers on their upcoming 6-game road trip. He's still at least 2 weeks away with that broken hand. Kevin Gausman confirmed he'll start on Saturday against the Cubs. He was dealing with a minor hip injury. Mariners GM Jerry DiPoto said that he fears Kyle Lewis could be in line for a long-term absence following his torn right meniscus. DiPoto added they're hopeful he can return later this season. So sounds like it's going to be a couple of months here for Kyle Lewis. Mike Yastrzemski was placed on the IL with a sprained right thumb. Logan Webb was placed on the IL with a right shoulder strain. Ke'Bryan Hayes made his long return. Yeah, let's go. On Thursday,
Brian,
he finished.
Boom. I keep
2 for
interrupting 4. You. Go ahead, Frank.
He finished 2 for 4 with a triple and a run scored. His first hit was actually an infield single that he beat out. So nice to see some of the speed here again from Ke'Bryan Hayes. Eliezer Hernandez was also making his return, and he pitched very well. 5 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, but he left with a quad strain while running the bases. Manager Don Mattingly said he believes this will be a long-term injury for Eliezer Hernandez. Just a really tough break. His first start back, he looked pretty good. So the IL in all likelihood for Hernandez. Colton Wong left Thursday's game with left oblique discomfort. This is the same oblique that gave him some trouble earlier in the season. Kendall Graveman is out of quarantine and has rejoined the Mariners in Seattle. He may require a few rehab or simulated games. Tommy Pham had a CT scan come back clean after his collision with Ha-Seong Kim. Pham remained out of the lineup on Thursday. Jorge Soler returned to the lineup for the Royals. Edward Olivares was optioned back to AAA. Corey Kluber, what can go wrong here, is expected to begin a throwing program soon, though his overall return timeline has not changed. This just has Yankees written all over it, which is hilarious, but not really. Some prospect updates, Scott. I saw that you wrote a recent prospect report on Thursday. If anyone wants to check it out, it is on the site right now, cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball, where you pointed out that Drew Waters is coming around for the Atlanta Braves, one of their top prospects in the system. He's an outfielder. Over his last games, he's been playing much better, but might not be ready yet. What are you seeing with Drew Waters?
Yeah, he has been playing much better, and the strikeout rate has been down. It's been respectable, really, during the stretch where he's shown improvement. Basically across the board, power's been up, but it's only been a couple weeks of that. And actually his season-long numbers in terms of the batting average and the OPS are lower than they were in 2019, which he split between double and AAA. So, he's been a prospect who's been, it's been more about the projection than the production so far. He did hit for a high average in 2019, but with a very high BABIP, and he does profile as a high BABIP bat, but it was like a 435 BABIP that he had in 2019. So, obviously he either needs to cut down on the strikeouts, he needs to improve the power, probably both, to become a major leaguer. And he's showing signs of doing that. But I just think it's too early to say, okay, he's he's good now, and we're gonna throw him out there in the majors and potentially unravel a lot of the progress he was making. So I feel hopeful that he'll be an option for the Braves later this year. I don't think we're to the point yet where you need to be stashing him in a typical redraft league.
Some prospects that you can be stashing, 5 that are on the verge. Wander Franco, who we talk about quite a bit, he had another big game on Wednesday. He went 3 for 5 with a home run and a stolen base. That is a sock and a shoe. Vidal Brujan remains awesome at AAA. He's running, he's hitting home runs. Joe Adell, he had a stretch, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, where he was hitting a bunch of home runs, and now he has gone back to striking out a bunch. And then the other 2 names that you mentioned, Scott, Jesus Sanchez and Jackson Kowar. Kowar?
I've been saying Kowar, but I'm not sure I've actually heard it said before.
Yeah, professional broadcaster. I should have looked that up. That's on me. That's on me. I do want to talk a little bit more about Jesus Sanchez and Kowar here, Scott. Should you be stashing those already at this point? And if so, in what leagues? What depth? What format?
I would say 15 teamers. Jesus Sanchez of the Marlins, who we did see last year, and he didn't do well in the majors, but he has been probably the most impressive hitter in all the minors so far this year. The power projection that had long been there for him, he's finally making good on it, and his batting average just finally dropped below 400. So he's been awesome. Marlins obviously need help. So Jesus Sanchez in like a 5 outfielder roto league, even a 12-teamer, I could see stashing him away there. I've tried to do it and just haven't been able to find a spot for him yet. Kowar, yeah, I think the Royals might turn to him next. He has a sub-1 ERA at AAA. He's 24 years old already, and it was part of that impressive first-round haul a couple years ago, where they got Singer and they got Daniel Lynch and they got Chris Bubich, and Kowar, at least initially, looked like the best bat misser of the bunch. So maybe he's not on the 40-man roster yet. Maybe they go back to Lynch the next time there's an opening. Maybe Danny Duffy will be recovered by the time an opening develops again. So it may not happen, but how long can Kowar, as a 24-year-old, sustain an ERA below 1 and get passed over, particularly in an organization that's been pretty aggressive with its promotions? I don't think it's going to be long.
And I just listened to a video while you were talking, Scott. It is indeed Kowar, at least the video that I pulled up here. So that is how you pronounce his name, and I agree. He just got, I think it was like AAA honors pitcher of the month.
Yeah, so the people may not be aware of this. It's not comfortable to say yet, but the International League and the Pacific Coast League are no more. It's now AAA East and AAA West. And actually, player of the month for May, AAA East was Jesus Sanchez. AAA West was Jackson Kowar.
Well, there you go. Definitely a name that should be on your radar at this point. 5 that you point out, Scott, that are on the periphery. Not that we need to spend any time on these, because I do want to get to our Week 11 sleepers. Bobby Witt, of course, he's in AA with the Kansas City Royals right now. Cal Raleigh, the catcher for the Mariners. Brandon Williamson, starting pitcher for the Mariners. Greg Jones, a shortstop in the Tampa Bay Rays organization. And Mitchell Parker, a starting pitcher for the Nationals. You can read about those again on the website, cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball, which brings us to the Week 11 pitcher and hitter planners presented by Line & Kugels. How does the scheduling look for next week? Well, we have 9 teams with 5 games. It's really a light week in terms of scheduling.
Yeah, it is.
I think I saw on Monday there's only 3 games on the schedule. So
there is, and one's a makeup game too. So initially there was only going to be 2.
Are gonna have to be creative on Monday night for Tuesday's podcast. But 9 teams have 5 games, 18 teams have 6 games, and there are 3 teams with 7 games. That includes the Boston Red Sox, the Kansas City Royals, and the Miami Marlins. Some hitters you might want to look at for volume: Andrew Benintendi, Hunter Dozier, and Hunter Renfroe, and maybe Kike Hernandez in a deeper league. Not that he's been great or anything. Scott, let's take a look at some 2-start pitchers for Week 11. Who are you interested in?
Well, I will point out first off, that my 2-start pitcher rankings right now, only 22 pitchers in them because of all those 5-game weeks. It might end up being more than 22. There's going to need to be a replacement for Eliezer Hernandez, who initially lined up for 2. It's possible that some of those teams playing 5 games, they'll reduce their rotation down to 4-man for this upcoming week, and we may see more 2-star pitchers because of that. But from what I know right now, I can only come up with 22 names for my 2-star pitcher rankings, which is, sometimes it's twice that many. So that's not many to go on. But probably the most interesting name that could potentially be available in your league is actually Tony Gonsolin of the Dodgers, who is set to return next week. It's missed all year with a shoulder injury. He's been on a rehab assignment. We, of course, know how good he can be, and now there's no question he's going to have a rotation spot to call his own. So the excitement level should be higher now than possibly ever before, and yet he remains available in a third of CBS sports leagues. Matchups at Pittsburgh versus Texas. If he does return on Tuesday, it's possible he doesn't. We don't know exactly what day he's returning, but he's supposed to return at some point next week. Tuesday makes sense. I'm hopeful he makes 2 starts. And if he makes 2 starts with those matchups, normally I'd play it safe, first start back from injury, but I don't. I think you pretty much have to start him if he is lined up for 2. Adbert Alzolay, I don't know how many times I've talked about him as a 2-start sleeper. Obviously, he hasn't actually made 2 starts that many times. He's gotten pushed back a few times. That's happening more than ever this year. It's just so difficult to project a week ahead how rotations are going to line up. Teams like to insert 6 starters to space out innings and whatnot. But Adbert Alzolay, obviously he's been good. Matchups aren't great, but whatever. Matthew Boyd, getting dicier here. I don't like Matthew Boyd in a general sense, and he's been regressing lately. But versus Seattle is the first start he's lined up for, also against the White Sox. I mean, Seattle, he might throw a no-hitter. Adrian Hauser, I think, is going to make 2 starts for the Brewers. Now, he came in relief in his last appearance, so it kind of messed up their whole rotation. But I think it's going to be Hauser. And one of his 2 matchups is against the Pirates. They're probably more of a points league play, but he's only 18% rostered. And then if you have to go deeper than that, Chris Bubich, he's more rostered than Hauser, actually. But the matchups are worse, and he showed some regression in his Thursday night start as well. He entered that start with a 1.52 ERA, so clearly he had some... He had to drop a bit, and he did. But if you're just looking for volume in a points league, I think Bubich is usable.
It's a light week when Scott is suggesting Matthew Boyd. I'll leave it at that, who we've talked about quite a bit all season long. Scott, who are some single start pitchers that you are looking at with good matchups for next week?
So Spencer Turnbull, I want to move on from him, but I can't. He goes against Seattle, so he might throw a no-hitter. Marco Gonzalez at Detroit. He just came back from the IL and looked pretty good in his first start. It was a short one, but his MO is pitching deep into games. Casey Mize against Seattle. He just refuses to slow down. And if I can get into his analysis from Thursday, since I'm bringing him up, 7 innings, 3 earned runs, 6 strikeouts in 7 innings. His strikeout rate hasn't been good, but he did have 17 swinging strikes in this one, including 7 on his slider, which I noticed was much slower than usual, like 3 miles per hour slower than usual. And he got a ton of whiffs with it. So maybe he changed something with his slider. I don't know. I'll have to see what comes out after the game. But it was interesting that you lose that much velocity on a breaking ball and it gets more effective. It may have been by design. 3 earned runs or fewer in 7 straight starts now for Casey Mize. And of course, since he's going against the Mariners, he might throw a no-hitter. Austin Gomber is lined up for 1 start at Miami. So good matchup, good venue. And he was almost my, oh my goodness gracious, player for Thursday night because he had a season high 18 swinging strikes in his start. It was in Coors Field. 18 whiffs, 9 on the changeup, but at least 2 on all 4 of his pitches. And now in his past 7 starts, Austin Gomber has a 2.68 ERA, a .89 whip, and 9.6 K per 9. So, again, no walks. Again, that's been a key to his improvement lately. No walks in this start. He's looking pretty useful still and has a good matchup this upcoming week.
Yeah, we'll have more on Austin Gomber a little bit later on. I'm facing him off against Martin Perez, who has also been very good over his last 7 starts. So we'll talk about that. Scott, who are some sleeper hitters that you like that are rostered in less than 70% of CBS leagues?
So it was a stretch coming up with 10 hitters this week, even though it was a stretch to find a lot of, well, I don't know. Not many games happening, but not great hitter choices either. Avisal Garcia is probably my favorite. He homered here Thursday. He had a great May. His expected stats look good, and the Brewers have good matchups. So he's my favorite. Andrew Benintendi's been on a nice run. I think you mentioned both of these guys already at the top. Hunter Renfroe, he's been hot. And the Red Sox are one of just 3 teams playing 7 games, I think you said. So Hunter Renfroe, when he gets hot, he can do a lot of damage. When he's not hot, not so much. AJ Pollock's back from the IL, and he should play close to every day. The Dodgers are another one of those teams. No, actually, they're playing 6 games, but they do have the most favorable hitter matchups. So I think Pollock is someone you could put in your lineup if you need to. Those are probably my favorites. I mean, I have Pavin Smith in here just because he's been hot and he's widely available, but only 5 games for the Diamondbacks. Garrett Cooper. The Marlins are another team playing 7 games. I don't expect him to actually start all 7, but he's been pretty hot lately. Yeah, I don't know. Hard to get excited about this group.
Scott referenced a few of these teams already, but the 5 teams with the best hitter matchups, the Dodgers, the Angels, the Brewers, the Marlins, and the Royals. The 5 teams with the worst hitter matchups include the Rangers, the Pirates, the Braves, the Twins, and the Orioles. So there you have it. The Week 11 pitcher and hitter planners presented by Line and Kugels. And I'm super excited for this pitching matchup this weekend between Jacob deGrom and Joe Musgrove. It's going down this Saturday night. I've got it all planned. I'm going to plop down on my couch, relax, watch that pitching masterpiece with an ice cold Line and Kugels Session Helles in my hand, which has all the flavor of a crisp German style beer. And it's only 99 calories. I actually found it at my local beer distributor. I am pumped. And if you're in the mood for some lemonade this weekend, may I offer you a Line and Kugels Summer Shandy? It's this awesome blend of crisp beer with refreshing lemonade. And if you're into IPAs, Line and Kugels offers their Lemon Haze IPA, which is a well-balanced hazy IPA that blends hops with their delicious lemonade. Just head on over to liney.com. That's LEINIE.com, or follow Line and Kugels on Instagram or Facebook for more information about all of the delicious beers that they brew. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we've got to talk about Christian Yelich because he hit a home run. Should you trade him? Talk about it next. Fantasy Baseball Today. Christian Yelich went 1 for 3 with his 2nd home run of the season. It's only June 3rd. You're listening to this on June 4th. 2 home runs for Christian Yelich. Since he has returned, he is batting at 171 with a 35% strikeout rate. And we spoke about this recently, Scott, but I have Yelich in just one league. It's my home keeper league, head-to-head points league. My outfield is not great. Part of the reason is because Yelich has been either hurt or struggling for most of the season. And I have this feeling that I want to try and turn him into something while I can. I put out a poll before we started the show, and I asked people, if you have him on your team, do you try and flip him after Thursday night's home run? 45% said that they would try to trade Yelich right now. 54% say that 54.6% say that they would hold Christian Yelich. So it's pretty close there. If you have him on your team, Scott, what would you be looking to do with him?
I would probably be looking to see what I could get. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that one isolated home run is going to really move the needle. And so maybe that's what the 55% were thinking. I thought it was going to be more lopsided than that, actually. But, if 80% saying, yeah, I'm going to try and shop him, then that would also kind of tell you it's not going to work, to shop him.
Yeah. You're right.
It seems like there are more believers out there than not, or maybe they're not believers. They're just skeptical like me that they could really get much for him at this point, which is fine. If you can't hold him, there's not really any harm in that. But yeah, I am at the point with Christian Yelich, and we talked about this, I think, a couple weeks ago, where I don't feel like I can count on him the rest of this season. I like him more in a dynasty context. I would be willing to buy low in the dynasty league, but for this season, I don't know what to expect, but I'm less than optimistic.
Yeah. And I don't want to speak in all doom and gloom, because maybe he gets healthier as the season goes along and the strikeout rate cuts and he comes closer to looking like Yelich. I don't know that we're going to get, MVP form Yelich this season ever again, for that matter. But in that same, in that same token, I feel like we can, at any point, he could just go down with an injury and just be done for the season. So I don't think it's like that, black and white. But if you were trying to shop him, Scott, what is a reasonable expectation? So you moved him down to your 15th ranked outfielder. I have him at number 12. If you can turn him into either Marte, is that something that you would do? Is that realistic? I don't know.
A Ketel Marte, yes. Yes, I would definitely turn him into Ketel Marte. Starling Marte, maybe. I don't know if it's realistic the kind of run Austin Meadows is on, but I'd probably be okay with that. Who else?
Would you do it for Jared Walsh? Or is that going too far down the list?
It just depends. Like if I'm killing it without much help from Yelich, I'd probably just stick with them. But if I'm struggling, at or under 500 and just can't afford to wait around for him, yeah, I think Walsh is right on the line there for me.
Okay, so you have Walsh at outfielder 21, Trey Mancini right behind him. You do that?
Yeah, I think Mancini, Walsh, they're about the same to me.
Okay. And then, Mitch Haniger's a little bit further down there. But yeah, I think it's a good point that you bring up. It probably depends like where you're at. If you're desperate, I think in my home league, I might be 6-3 or something like that. So I don't necessarily have to make a move, but I'm worried. Yeah, I tend to play it a little bit safer. If you want to shoot for the upside and hold on to Christian Yelich, you can do that too. Just realize there is a lot of injury risk with him right now. Let's fire up the drop-o-meter, Scott. And we've been getting a few questions specifically about this catcher, Yasmani Grandal, who did go 1 for 3 with his 7th home run of the season on Thursday, but he is batting just 137. One of the weirdest stat lines all season. He's batting 137 with a 384 on base percentage. He has a near 29% walk rate, which is bananas. And it helps him stay rostered in points leagues because at least he's walking as much as he is. And OBP formats, I think you should hold Yasmani Grandal. But say that you play in a one-catcher league and one of James McCann, Mike Zunino, William Contreras, all of them are available, one or all. Would you drop Grandal for any of those?
Probably not. I don't know that you're... I don't know. I don't know that there's much to gain there. I don't feel like the ceiling is so high or the production has been so amazing for any of McCann, Zunino, or Contreras. I don't think Grandal can sustain a walk rate this high all year. I also don't think he's going to sustain a batting average this low all year. I think there's going to be some correction on both ends. The fact that he's basically on a 20 homer pace suggests to me he hasn't completely lost it as a hitter. And if he had completely lost it as a hitter, if teams just no longer feared him, there's no way he'd be walking anywhere close to this much, They just thought they could knock the bat out of his hands. So I think Grandal gets better from here, and I'm thankful that he hasn't been entirely useless because of those walks.
Even if you think Yasmani Grandal is a shell of the former player that he used to be, he has a 123 BABIP this season. In his career, that number is 276. I don't care. You can have a 50% ground ball rate if you're Yasmani Grandal. Your BABIP should not be that low. I'm sorry. Big issue for him has been that ground ball rate. It is a not career high. It's 46%, which is the highest it's been since 2013. So it's been a long time. His line drives are down, but I have to imagine some of that is going to reverse course, and it's going to help his BABIP. So it's been rough. I get it with Yasmani Grandal, but I'm with you. I wouldn't drop him for any of those three catchers. Though if I was just ranking those three, I do think James McCann is above the rest. He's coming around. His last, I just had this pulled up, his last 15 games, James McCann is batting 295 with 4 home runs. So slowly coming around. I would not drop Grandal for any of those. How about Patrick Corbin, Scott? We always talk about him. It feels like every start that he goes out there, we are monitoring it very closely. He was at the Braves on Thursday, 5 1/3, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, only 8 swinging strikes on 79 pitches. He now has a 6.43 ERA and a 1.76 whip over his last 4 starts. Patrick Corbin, still 85% rostered. What is the drop-o-meter for one Corbin?
Probably about an 8 at this point. I am running out of excuses to make for him. A lot of what I thought was wrong with him coming into the season, what seemed to go wrong for him in 2020, like that, a lot of it's improved. But apart from one start against the Phillies in mid-May, the results haven't improved at all. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not so sure he's worth protecting anymore, which is what having him on your roster is all about, protecting him from landing in the wrong hands.
Would you drop him for Tarek Skubal?
I think so.
I think so too. I'm kind of excited by what Tarek Skubal is doing right now. Would you drop him for Adbert Alzolay? This is why you get paid the big bucks, Scott.
Yeah, and I think I would do that too. Yeah.
How about Tony Gonsolin?
Definitely. I have Gonsolin, I think, in my top 40 at starting pitcher. It's kind of shocking to me that he hasn't gotten picked up in more leagues, because like this is, like I said before, I mean, obviously there's a chance coming back from an injury he could suffer a setback, whatever. That's always a possibility, but like I feel like this is the most excited we should ever be. We've ever needed to be about Tony Gonsolin, because like the Dodgers need him more than ever. Yeah. The question with him hasn't been effectiveness. It's how would they use him? And we know how they're going to use him this time. So give me all the Tony Gonsolin I can handle.
Yep. And that's an endorsement to go out and try and trade for Tony Gonsolin too, if he's already on someone else's team. There's a lot to like there with him. He was very effective in 2020. Obviously, it's Tony Gonsolin we're talking about. And that's why I actually feel really good about Julio Urias right now too, Scott, is the fact that they don't really have a choice. They don't want to use David Price as a starting pitcher. Dustin May is out for the season. I think they're just going to let Julio Urias go. I don't know that they're going to be able to restrict him just because they don't have that luxury. So I do
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. It obviously would not be a good thing for him long term. So maybe they'll find a way to preserve his innings in the second half. But like just to bolster Gonsolin again, like that's not a concern for him because he's missed a third of the season already. You know, like he's got so many innings left in the tank. It's another reason to be more excited than ever about Gonsolin.
Go and get yourself some Tony Gonsolin, some hot hitters right now. I'm going to breeze through this a little bit, Scott. If there's anyone that I bring up that you'd like to talk about, just interrupt me and do your thing. Salvador Perez had another double dong on Thursday. He now has 14 home runs while batting .284. Jesse Winker went 3 for 5 with his 14th home run of the season. He is batting .348 with a 1044 OPS. Jesse Winker now ranked inside our top 20 outfielders for both Scott and myself. Austin Meadows went 2 for 5 with another home run, a double, and 5 RBI. He has 5 home runs over his last 7 games. Man, Austin Meadows, I am so worried about that fly ball rate. Please just keep hitting home runs. Ketel Marte went 4 for 5. He is batting .333 in 15 games since returning from the IL. Brian Reynolds went 2 for 4 with his 8th home run of the season. He has 4 home runs over his last 7 games. He's 80% rostered. I know Brian Reynolds is not exciting, but I kind of feel like that number needs to be 100%. I think we're at that point with Brian Reynolds. He needs to be universally rostered. Ozzie Albies 3 for 4 with 2 RBI and his 5th stolen base of the season. Dansby Swanson has now homered in back-to-back days, and he has a 12-game hitting streak. So like to see that from Dansby Swanson. And Brandon Crawford had at least 2 more hits the last time I checked, but one of those was a home run, his 12th home run of the season. He now has 36 RBI, Brandon Crawford does. That is 3rd among all shortstops in baseball. Some deep waiver wire hitters who may be available, likely are available in your leagues. Miguel Andujar has 3 home runs in his last 4 games. He's only 13% rostered. Nico Goodrum went 1 for 4 on Thursday with his 10th steal. He is the 7th player this season who has double-digit steals. Jake Fraley had a sock in a shoe on Thursday. He had a 3-run home run off of Griffin Canning. He's only 2% rostered, but figures to play as long as Dylan Moore and Kyle Lewis remain out. And I'll throw Jake Lamb in this mix, who I brought up earlier, Scott. So again, deep league hitters, 15-team roto, maybe some AL. These are, all AL only players. How would you rank those 4? Andujar, Goodrum, Fraley, Lamb.
I would go Andujar, Goodrum, Fraley, Lamb. Yeah. I haven't been motivated to pick up any of them yet, but I think Andujar is definitely worth keeping an eye on, because the last time we saw him play extensively, he was basically must start, pretty close to it. He was Gio Urshela before Gio Urshela, just in terms of what he provided offensively. So the Yankees need all the hitters they can find right now. Seems like there's an opening for him, and at least recently here, it's been making good on that opportunity.
Yep, Miguel Andujar back in 2018 provided high batting average. I think it was 27 home runs, decent run and RBI numbers there. So if he remains in the lineup, I don't see why he wouldn't. The Yankees obviously need a spark. So we brought up his name a lot recently. I think maybe even in 12-team, 5 outfielder leagues, if you're just really hurting for an outfielder, I wouldn't mind taking a shot there on Miguel Andujar. Some deeper waiver wire starting pitchers. We're going to have a face-off here, Scott, between Martin Perez and the aforementioned Austin Gomber. Martin Perez at the Houston Astros. Great start. 7 2/3 shutout, 6 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. His last 7 starts, Martin Perez has a 1.98 ERA, 37 strikeouts to just 9 walks. The control has been much better this season for Martin Perez. And then Austin Gomber, who had a great start against the Texas Rangers, 6 shutout, 6 strikeouts, 18 swinging strikes, as you mentioned, Scott. He is 38% rostered. Martin Perez is 26% rostered. Who do you like more, Perez or Gomber, and why?
I like Gomber more, in part because I don't really think there's anything new Martin Perez has to show us. And in part because I like the underlying numbers for Gomber more. The xFIP is about 40 points lower. The strikeout rate is higher. The walk rate is actually higher than Perez, but it's been very different for Gomber since April. It's been a great control pitcher. There is, one major knock on Gomber is obviously where he makes his home starts, and I think that keeps him from being must roster. But we're comparing him to Martin Perez, so I think Martin Perez, if you put your faith in him, I understand 190 ERA and his 198 ERA in his past 7 starts, but not the kind of peripherals you can get excited about, especially knowing the source.
Austin Gomber, I know he pitches in Coors Field. Obviously, we don't like starting pitchers who call that location their home park. He had a 1.88 ERA in Coors Field entering Thursday start. So
I think it was only 3 starts though.
Yep.
So it's been a very road heavy schedule for Gomber. But obviously it's 4 starts now, and that ERA is even better.
Yep. And you mentioned this earlier. He's at the Miami Marlins next week. So lots to like there with that matchup for Austin Gomber. Real quick, Scott, in much deeper leagues, Tucker Davidson, a prospect for the Atlanta Braves, he returned to the rotation on Thursday against the Washington Nationals. 5 2/3 shutout. He wasn't all that effective. I was watching the start very closely. I have him in your dynasty league. He allowed 1 hit, 5 walks to 5 strikeouts. Control has been an issue for him in the minors. Anything to see here with Tucker Davidson? He's 8% rostered.
Yeah, I think potentially. I'm hopeful that we haven't heard him that he's getting sent down yet, right? He got sent down after his first start, which was a quality start.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about it yet. I guess they still could, but
and the Braves are one of the teams with 6 games next week, so they're going to need 5 starters. I think there's a way they could send down Davidson and maybe bring Bryce Wilson back up for the next turn through. But on the other hand, how much longer is Drew Smyly going to last in the rotation? So Davidson's been pretty close to untouchable at AAA this year. Only 3 starts, but still. And his first 2 starts have been his first 2 major league starts this year have been less than stellar, but I think they justify a longer look. So not mixed league material yet, but Tucker Davidson is one for the scout team.
Throw him on the scout team. Some Thursday leftovers. Garrett Hampson went 4 for 5 with 2 doubles, 2 runs, and an RBI. He's 73% rostered and should be rostered in any category leagues just because he provides as many steals as he does. Lance Lynn up against the Tigers, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. The ERA is down to 1.38. Lance Lynn he's so interesting because his expected ERA on StatCast is 2.55. So he does a great job of limiting hard contact. His xFIP is 4.04 because he allows as many fly balls as he does. It's just that a lot of those have not turned into home runs yet. I don't know that it's going to happen, but Lance Lynn, man, just continues to get it done. Casey Mize, we spoke about a little bit earlier, 7 innings, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts. He has a quality start in 6 of his last 7. And Josh Donaldson went 3 for 5 with a double dong. He's only batting .250. And it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about him as a buy low candidate. That hasn't really come to fruition yet, but I still think based on the underlying numbers, I would be trying to buy Josh Donaldson. A lot like Charlie Blackmon, if you could. He's not flashy. He's older, but I think better days are coming for him. The call to the pen for the Cincinnati Reds. Lucas Sims pitched in the 8th and the 9th inning for his team-leading 4th save of the season. He is 22% rostered. Scott, how would you rank Lucas Sims, JP Fireisen, and Hansel Robles if you are in need of saves? They are all rostered in less than 25% of CBS leagues.
I would go Fireisen first because I think he's become the top option for saves in Tampa. It's just that Rays are going to raise, and sometimes it's not going to go to him. But yeah, Fireisen would be number 1. Lucas Sims, I think he's become the top option that isn't TJ Anton. So, in this particular game, Anton was needed for 2 innings before Sims pitched his 2 innings. And then Hansel Robles third. I think the Twins are pretty much moved away from Robles as a save source. I know he got a save the other day, but it was in extra innings after Taylor Rogers worked the 9th, I think. So, yeah, it doesn't look like Robles is being handled much like a closer anymore.
Speaking of Hansel Robles, he pitched in the 7th inning on Thursday with the game tied at the time. He allowed an unearned run to score on an error, and he took the loss. For the Kansas City Royals, Scott Barlow pitched 2 innings for his 2nd save. Kyle Zimmer pitched in the 5th and the 6th inning. Greg Holland pitched 3 days in a row from May 29th through May 31st. So maybe he was unavailable. I don't know, but it's
Barlow has been their most effective reliever this year, and including over Josh Stallmont. It does sound like Stallmont is gearing up to return. So I don't know that Barlow's really going to have a chance to snatch the job away. But Mike Matheny we're talking about, so who knows?
Let's wrap up with some to stream or not to stream. We'll start with Friday. John Gray versus the Oakland A's. Kwang-Hyun Kim versus the Reds. Spencer Turnbull at the White Sox. Josh Fleming at the Rangers. Cody Poteet at the Pirates. And Mitch Keller versus the Marlins.
So I would say Spencer Turnbull against the White Sox is the most attractive one to me here. Then probably, I don't love it, but John Gray against the A's, Kim against the Reds.
Josh Fleming has pitched pretty well. Pitches to contact, but going up against the Texas Rangers, so whatever. To stream or not to stream for Saturday, Tarek Skubal at the White Sox, Alex Cobb versus the Mariners, Merrill Kelly at the Brewers, Chase DeYoung versus the Marlins, Spencer Howard versus the Nationals, and Mike Minor versus the Twins.
Skubal at the White Sox. Kelly at Milwaukee, I guess. Milwaukee's so bad. And I think I like Mike Minor against the Twins, the third most of this group.
Yeah, Mike Minor's been getting a ton of strikeouts recently, too, and that Twins lineup is a little beat up. Some to stream or not to stream for Sunday. Garrett Richards at the Yankees, Logan Gilbert at the Angels, Johnny Cueto versus the Cubs, Dane Dunning versus the Tampa Bay Rays, Wade Miley at the Cardinals, and who? John Gant versus the Reds.
So 5 shutout innings with 4 walks and 5 strikeouts for Gant, right?
We had a player debate on yesterday's podcast, Scott, without you. It was John Gant versus Garrett Cole. Rest of season.
Okay. Well, I don't, man, John Gant might be my favorite of this group. Actually, it's not good. It's not a good list for Sunday.
It's not.
Sunday's not a good day to stream. I don't even want to pick any others. It's not good.
Okay. So I will choose with the caveat that, look, we don't like these. But if you're really desperate, I would go with Logan Gilbert at the Angels, and let's go with Wade Miley coming off a good start at the St. Louis Cardinals. And before we do have some fantasy justice questions, we're going to quickly hit some of our Apple Podcast reviews. We appreciate everyone who has left a 5-star Apple Podcast rating. Drop a question in the review. We're actually almost at 2,500 of those. So if you enjoyed the podcast and you haven't left a 5-star review yet, please feel free to do so.
Do it.
This question's from Matt H156. Can I please drop Joey Gallo? Would you rather have someone like Robbie Grossman, 10-team 6x6 categories with walks and holds?
Yeah, Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo is pretty frustrating because you know, go off for 11 home runs in like a 3-week span.
Especially with the weather heating up. I know he's bad.
I mean, Grossman's been pretty useful.
Especially
I just
with walks. He's got a high OBP, Robbie Grossman does.
That's only a 10-team league. Stick with Gallo. You need the higher impact player in a 10-team league for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This one's from Seb, 1133, 12-team dynasty with contracts and salaries assigned, head-to-head categories with OBP as an added category. Should I trade my $2 Jesse Winker, who was a free agent after this year, $2 Marcana, and $5 Trent Grisham for $34 Mookie Betts, 25% increase in salary each year? Which means Mookie Betts is going to be something like $43 next year, $43.
I'm kind of surprised I'm saying this, but I think no. I think that's too much to give up, especially considering the keeper ramifications, because I'm not feeling confident Betts will be worth keeping him. Probably 1 more year, but 2 more years? No, probably not. Probably going to get too pricey. And I mean, those are 3 like must-start outfielders you're giving up. They're obviously not Mookie Betts, but yeah, I don't think I could do it.
Don't do it. This one's from TMS 299. Grade the trade. Give Kyle Hendricks and Trevor Rogers for Aaron Nola in a 10-team head-to-head points league with 4 keepers.
Yes.
Grade it.
Hang on. I had the wrong Rogers in mind. I had the wrong T. Rogers. I was thinking one of the closers. Trevor Rogers is the best one, the starting pitcher. I still think yes because it's a 10-team league, but C+.
C+, barely a win there for you, but good job. From Jacob Worley, I'm in a head-to-head points league with 4 IL spots. Was wondering if I should drop Eloy Jimenez. My biggest fear is him coming back towards the end of the season and going on a tear for someone else's team after I held him this long.
Yeah, I don't think you need to hold on to Jimenez. I don't suspect somebody's going to pick him up. Probably most everyone who's paying attention has those 4 IL spots filled already. Just the way injuries have gone this year. And yeah, I think I'd be comfortable dropping him if I felt a roster crunch. No telling if he makes it back before September or at all.
From Matt Locke, 89. Grade the trade. 15-team head-to-head redraft points league. I send Paul Goldschmidt, Jake Cronenworth, and Walker Buehler for Jacob deGrom and Jared Kelenic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's a good trade. I will grade it I'll grade it a B+.
This next one's from Dwayne Clark. I just turned down a trade, giving up John Means to get Anthony Rendon. I have Chris Bryant as my third baseman and Trent Grisham, Kyle Tucker, and Nick Castellanos in my outfield. I apologize. Some of these questions might be a little bit older. They take some time to populate in the Apple Podcast reviews. So this might have been when Trent Grisham was still healthy, but I don't see a place for Anthony Rendon. But the Facebook group, the FBT Facebook group, scolded me for declining the offer. Thoughts? Well, come on, guys. Be nice. Be nice on the Fantasy Baseball Today Facebook group. We're all friends here. What do you think, Scott? If you had that team, would you feel okay turning down Anthony Rendon for John Means?
He doesn't say what format it is.
Nope.
I think I'd be okay turning it down. Probably a situation where 7-8 times out of 10 I'd take Anthony Rendon, but I think there's a good chance you need the pitcher more here, and of course I like John Means a lot.
So yeah, take that, Facebook group. Be nice to Dwayne. From Sad About Tim, grade the trade in head-to-head categories with OBP, slugging, and quality starts as the added categories. I trade Tim Anderson, Austin Meadows, and Sixto Sanchez for Max Scherzer and DJ LeMahieu. Really need pitching. Sad to let Tim go, but I have Xander Bogaerts.
I think it's fine. I think it's good. I think Max Scherzer is the most valuable player here. And
I love Tim Anderson, but he takes quite a hit in the OBP league. True.
Yeah, I mean, I feel better about it if I knew what was going on with LeMahieu, of course. But I think even if LeMahieu remains pretty useless, and I don't think he will, he's got to get better. I think the fact you're getting the best player in the deal still makes it justifiable.
Grade the trade.
Oh, I didn't know how to grade it. I will give it a B.
A B. I agree. Let's go with B. All right, we're not going to get to your fantasy justice questions. I apologize. But as I mentioned, Monday night, we have a 3-game schedule, so we'll have a bunch of talk about then. We will hit your fantasy justice questions at that point. If you have anything going on in your league with a fishy commissioner, maybe some of your league mates are vetoing your trade, something wacky that's going down, email us in, put fantasy justice in the subject line. We will hit those on Monday night's podcast. For Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball Today. We'll be back again on Monday. Bye-bye.